What up? What up? What up? Straight like that, man. Y'all know the vibes, man. I hope you've done something right now that your future self would thank you for. Welcome to another episode of the Ultimate 216 Show. We are live for the second week in a row. It's your boy Earl of Pearl and my guest today, my homeboy Lance Reisland, aka Coach Rez. Man, what's up, Coach? How you feel?
I'm doing very well, Earl. How are you, buddy? Appreciate you having me on, man. Looking
Man,
forward to this.
appreciate you joining me. Listen, y'all, I'm telling y'all are gonna have some fun. I can't wait till y'all get to know my guy. He is really, really great with the X's and O's. He actually is one of those people who's been in the trenches putting in work. So, like, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna joke. It's been a great day, man. I cannot thank you enough for just taking time out to join me. As always, y'all know the vibes, man. Like, subscribe, make sure y'all ring that bell. And when y'all are here in the Ultimate 216 Show, jump in the chat. Let me know where you are watching from, where you pulling up from. Also, we got a poll up in the YouTube chat right now, and it's called What Matters Most to You? The options is full body of work or what have you done for me lately? So go in, vote early on that, and we'll get to that later on in the show. Before we start getting into topics, Lance, let me just tell the audience real quick. So I met Coach Rez over the summer at Cleveland Browns training camp. He was introduced to me by a mutual friend, my co-host at 92.3 The Fan, Spencer German. And my immediate thought process, man, this is just such a good human being. This is just such a good dude. And just getting to talking to you and getting to know you, I was like, all right, not only like is his spirit right, his heart right, but like he knows ball as well. So let me give y'all a rundown and I'm going to turn it over to Coach so he can tell you a little bit about his background. Former head coach, former offensive coordinator at Garfield Heights High School, Spectrum Sports color commentator. He's on the 92.3 The Fan payroll, just like myself. You can catch him on the Fan Tailgate Show, and he's a Cleveland.com Browns contributor. Me and you was talking before we logged on about, your days coaching at Garfield High School with your dad. How did you get into coaching? How did you get into to teaching? And what's your favorite thing about both?
Well, my favorite thing. Well, first of all, I want to say my mom, God rest her soul, she'd be so happy that the first thing that you're thankful for in our relationship is just kindness, because that's how I've always been. I always enjoy talking with people and learning people, and you don't know people's stories, so it's kind of nice to. My mom would be very proud of that intro, so thank you. I started. I've been a coach's kid. My first day of football was when I was 2 years old. I'm 51 now, so I've been around the game a long time. I was a kid who grew up on the sidelines with my dad. I played high school football for my father. I played at Kent State. And then when I was done playing at Kent State, I took the job at Garfield. And when my dad was head coach there and I was offensive coordinator for my dad for 18 years, then I was the head coach. 2018, we had a really good season. I had outstanding coaches and players that made us really good that year. We finished 11-1. And then I decided to get out of football for that aspect of it, just because I wanted to be a better husband and a better father. Sometimes those work hours, I learned the football game is that work works. And so I enjoyed the hours with football. And I just wasn't home enough. And I was kissing my daughter before she was up, and I was kissing her when she was in bed. So decided to make the move. And now I get to do things like this and try to spread some. And I'm a lifelong learner, so I love to talk about football, and I also love to learn about it from guys like you and Spence and everybody else. So I've kind of scratched my itch with this kind of stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. And more importantly, I've met some really great people, including yourself, in terms of people with their past and their passions and what they like. So it's been quite a ride, and it's my, I think, 30th year of teaching now. So I'm old, and I enjoy spreading some football knowledge and some love about what I know.
Hey, talk about the teaching part. Talk about the teaching aspect for a minute, because we were talking about those Garfield ties, and I said, Marcus Johnson was getting busy the other day versus St. Vincent St. Mary, and you gave me some insight that you actually was his teacher and his father's teacher at one point. That is crazy. That is wild.
Well, it tells you unfortunately, Earl, it tells you how old I am. So, Sonny's been around forever. Sonny obviously was Mr. Basketball in 1998. Sonny's a great human. More than anything else, Sonny had a wonderful relationship with he still does with me, but he had a wonderful relationship with my father, who passed a few years back. Sonny's an amazing guy. And obviously his older son, Sonny Jr. was an outstanding basketball player. Obviously, Marcus is Mr. Basketball, but those kids are, I don't even know them as basketball players. They're better human beings, and they're really good kids. And, Sonny kind of has the same mentality. It's the basketball part of it's easy. The football part of it's easy. It's trying to build relationships with kids who have different backgrounds than you. One of our theories was we don't know kids' background. My dad always taught me you don't know their background, where they're from, their culture, their history, their whatever it is. So try to be an outlet for them. And Sonny has been doing that for a long time. And Sonny's now he's the older statesman in the high school, and he's doing a great job. His kids are fantastic. And we have the similar philosophy in terms of just, sports are one thing, but they go away early, as you know. So you got to be, your character never does. So we really work on, making our kids do the right thing day in and day out.
Yo, it's funny, man, because I think the universe aligns you with people that you're supposed to be aligned with as you journey throughout life. And I didn't know, I guess, until this moment today that we kind of share a not so pleasant place of, I don't have my mom or my dad either. And I can already tell how many times that you've referenced your dad, referenced your mom, that is a part of your passion now. That is a part of what motivates you and what drives you now and keeps you going. So I know, like, as we're approaching Christmas, it can be tough for people that's in this situation. So peace and blessings to you, man, because I'm gonna tell you, you carry it very well. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. It's one of the nice things about working in media now are things like this where I get to talk about my father, because when I got out of coaching, that was such our connection. We've been together for so long and talked every day, and football was our connection with everything else we did. So when I talk about stuff, the stuff that I know is because he taught me. So it's really nice because I get to talk about my dad just about every day now.
There it is. Well, let's get into some football talk. But first, man, we got to hear from FanDuel. This episode of the Ultimate 216 Show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what making live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're watching and reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live player props updates as guys heat up. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, so can you. So where I wanted to get started with you today, Lance, was breaking down Shedeur Sanders, 4 NFL stars, and just kind of getting your assessment from, a football coach or offensive mind of the pros, the cons, and just what you see in totality as we move forward to close out this season, and he earns his keep for 2026. Let's start with the pros. 4 stars. I've seen everything that you've written and everything that you've broken down. What's your overall, give me a list of pros that you've seen from Shedeur over 4 games so far?
Well, I'd say number one, outside of the throws and things is his impact on others. If you look at what he's done for like Samson, for example, he creates an energy and he creates a vibe, and that's kind of that it factor with all quarterbacks. That's really hard to measure. That's why all of us who kind of do this for a living, it's really hard to measure quarterback's value. That's why people mess up in terms of their success. So his impact has been outstanding. The next thing that I really like is obviously his ability to throw the ball deep, stretch the field. That's been really, really important because they have not been able to do that in a number of years. Now, the thing that he's really bringing that people don't understand. So when he played at Colorado, he played under Pat Shurmur, and they really struggled in pass protection. So they did a really nice job of making sure that they got rid of the ball quickly. That, for some reason, turned into he can't process information. The thing that you're seeing is his ability to process information, get the ball out, and be very calm in situations that are not very calm. So I've been very impressed with that. And then overall, Earl, some of the things that he really struggled with, he's really improved. Now, he's got a long way to go. And I told everybody, the thing that I liked most is that as excited as everybody was against the Titans, I was still not overly excited. As some of the struggles he had last week, it really didn't bother me either, because as a starting quarterback, you're going to go through those things. You're going to go through the ups and downs. You're going to go through the, different coverages and what people can do. And like the interception, never at Colorado did Gardner Johnson drop from the line of scrimmage and pick the ball off 17 yards downfield. That doesn't happen in college. So you get those eye-opening moments, but he handles the pressure very, very well. The thing that I think from my experience, seeing him every day at practice, he's a really good teammate. So the noise that sometimes people have, the positive and negative, he's kind of what you want. He's a guy who just kind of goes to work every day, and that's he's energetic. He has fun. So I've been really impressed. And as you know, we talked during camp, I'm also a Dylan fan. I think Dylan had a lot of ups, and I understand why they drafted him. Sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay too. It doesn't change your evaluation of these guys. It's just the right timing, the right place. And the people that say he didn't get a shot, well, as my dad used to say, life's not fair. But when you get your shot, you better take it. And I think he's doing a pretty good job of taking that opportunity and continuing to get better each week.
Okay. So some of the things you said about, let's go back to the processing of the information part, because like you said, out of nowhere, it was just the story that he couldn't process information. And I kind of always looked at that as a head scratcher, because your offensive coordinator in Colorado is a former NFL head coach and a former NFL offensive coordinator. So it's like, to me, this notion that there was this lack of being prepared when the structure there had NFL minds in it. People had been in the NFL and knew the business of the NFL. And ultimately, when you structure out a staff like that with the goal of getting kids to come to your program because you can get them to that next level, which is the NFL, I just always found that hard to believe. And I know Shedeur had talked a couple weeks ago about his learning style, and everybody doesn't have the same learning style. Some people are non-traditional with it. I know for me, I'm a hands-on learner. Like, you can sit up there in front of a chalkboard or a whiteboard and tell me things all day long, and I can take notes all day long. But until I get out there and actually do it, it's gonna be murky waters there. So to hear you talk about that, and then just to being a good teammate part, a lot of my content, I'm an emotional dude. And I always talk about those unwritten intangibles, or the things that don't show up in a scouting report or in a box score. And when you talk about just like infectious energy, because we know energy transfers, and like that level of confidence and just having that natural born leadership quality to you, from just like your perspective as a coach, those are things that don't show up in completion percentage and your footwork and are you drifting in the pocket. Exactly how important is it for your quarterback of all positions to have those type of intangibles about himself?
Well, I'll give you an example. So when he threw a couple of the interceptions, if you look at Shedeur, he stood there and didn't run after the ball after after he threw the interception. Now, it's not really bad for a lot of people, but a person like Shedeur, that sticks out to me. Why? Because part of what he does so well is that he attacks and he has fun. So when he throws that interception, go make a tackle. Mistakes happen. You have drops. You have these things. So what I thought that was a great learning moment for him, because now he can look on the film and go, hey, that's my bad. I can't do that. Because as a quarterback in the NFL, you can't have bad days. Now, you can have bad days throwing the ball, but you can't have that bad days leadership-wise. You can't have bad days emotionally, because all your teammates, like an offensive lineman, they're hitting each other all day. You have to be consistent in what you do. And that's kind of what he does very well. I go back to camp, and you were standing there with me. Everybody talked about the quarterback competition, and whether you liked it or not, I really appreciated those four quarterbacks helping each other. I really appreciated, we saw that every day, just standing there, and the idea that he wasn't getting reps, but still getting mental reps and doing things. He never, he didn't play the victim, which I think is important. That people understand some of his success, because he never thought of it. It's kind of, you can either play the victim, or when you get your shot, whether it's fair or not, and you take it. And I thought that was really important that he does that, that he did that. And once again, not running after the ball, that's a learning moment for him, because that's what you expect from him. Now, a lot of quarterbacks don't chase the ball, but they don't maybe have the leadership skills or his style of leadership skills. So that's a great learning moment. And when you're, as or when you get we get late in the season, legs are tired, practice is tough. You got to have a guy who's the juice guy. You got to have a guy who brings the juice no matter what. And Shedeur, as a quarterback, that's part of his strength. That's part of his superpower. So, he'll learn that. He'll continue to do that. And nothing's too big for him. That, some of the things that make it hard to be Deion's son, some of the things really help. The stage is not too big. He understands, he's been around these type of things. So he's only going to get better. And I really believe that, but I believe that about a lot of guys. And the other option is to say things aren't going to go well. And I don't believe that. I think he's doing the right thing, and I think he's going to get better and better.
Talk about some of the things that you have kind of looked at as you went over the film, went over the tape from game to game, that points out to you as weaknesses, as things that Shedeur still need to work on more often than not.
Well, one of the things he's not doing a great job of right now is, well, I think he's really improving his footwork, but he has that drifting where he's not only drifting backwards, but he gets his weight back. So it's, if you think about a baseball pitcher, he's not really getting his weight from his backside to his front side. But I'd say the thing that's really hurting him right now is that he's not seeing his pre-snap read, and he's sticking to that pre-snap read. In the NFL, they change the picture all the time. And so I think what's happening is like the Gardner Johnson. The interception, I tell everybody, that was my Travis Hunter interception. And what I mean by that was pre-snap, Fannin was the guy. Guys on the line of scrimmage, he's the flat defender. So that was all pre-snap to me. So when he threw it to Fannin, Gardner Johnson retreated and made the play. But in college, that guy's not retreating and making the play. So he kind of didn't retake the picture, which is what you have to do. You have to go, we always talk about pre-snap read, post-snap confirmation. Right? Pre-snap, you get what you think there, but people change the picture. And that's what's happening, especially if you saw last week with Dennis Allen, right? They put 8 guys on line of scrimmage. That's all to try to mess that quarterback, mess that offensive line up. The more you do it, the more you see, well, if the safety's not stacking, that guy's dropping. If that linebacker's not head up on the back, then he's got man coverage. All those little things, that just takes game reps. And you said it earlier, you can do everything, and it's important that you practice well. But it doesn't matter until you do your livelihood as a man. It could be taken away by guys like Myles Garrett, and they're hitting you for real. So it just takes live reps, but he's got to continue to get better from pre-snap to post-snap. And then, again, the footwork, transferring his weight from back to forward, making sure he doesn't drift. One of the things, when you get pressure, A and B gap pressure in college, you drift, not because it's a bad, you drift to buy time, right? Half a second. You drift to buy time so you can get rid of the ball. Those are all, he's got to have trust in his offensive line. And as much as everybody said, I think as much as everybody said he won in spite of Kevin Stefanski and in spite of his teammates, and he had such a great game against the Titans. I disagree with that. I think you have to win as a team. Just like some of the struggles he had this week, those weren't all his either, right? There's a drop by Judy. There's some pass protection issues. So I think what he's really learning is that, and he's doing a good job of, this is a team game. He's the biggest piece of the pie, but he's just a piece of it. And the great quarterbacks know that. And mentally, he's pretty solid already. So like I said, I think these 3 weeks are really, really big for him, just to see where he's at. And does he continue to progress with the pre and post snap, the footwork, the anticipation, the accuracy, all those kind of things.
I always go back to something I heard Jim Brown say when I was probably about 20, 21 years old, that in football, you need all 11 parts moving in the same direction at the same time to have success. It's just that so simple when you talk about football being the ultimate team sport. Before we move on to the second topic of the day, just weighing the pros, weighing the cons. You've heard the talk. I've heard the talk. Whether Shedeur Sanders should be the option to be the Cleveland Browns quarterback for 2026. You got some people who feel like the Browns should draft a quarterback high in this draft, like a Fernando Mendoza. Some people are still on the fence with it. I'm one of those people to where I want to see Shedeur in 2026. I want to see the Cleveland Browns take those draft picks and build actually a quality roster out around them. I want to see you draft some offensive linemen and sign one or two. I want to see you draft a couple wide receivers. I want a wide receiver in round 1, possibly round 2. If I can't get one in round 2, give me another one in round 3. I want to see them add to the talent that's already here and give him a full 17 games to go with this 7 to make a true assessment. I am right there in the camp with everybody else when they say, okay, 7 games is not enough to deem him your franchise quarterback. I agree with that. But if you take Shedeur Sanders' name off of it, I don't think 7 games is enough to deem anybody your franchise quarterback. But 24 games is a fair enough sample size, in my opinion, to tell if this guy is the right guy to lead your organization moving forward. But just based off what you've seen, based on your gut feeling or however you look at it, how do you see it playing out? Do you think the Browns should kind of go find another quarterback, or should Shedeur be their man for next season?
Well, they can't reach. They can't reach for a quarterback because they feel like they're quarterback hungry, right? If you don't like, and I'm actually writing something on Mendoza right now. There's a lot of like about him, but there are some questions. And if there's not a slam dunk, or who you think is a slam dunk, then you have to make sure that you don't just reach because you're feeling like you have to reach. The one thing that I think everybody's learning right now is that I don't know if the evaluation after 7 or after 24, whatever it is, you're learning that football is won inside out, and that's why the Browns defense has had such success, because that defensive line. It's the same thing that goes with the offensive line. Your offensive line has to be good. They have to marry the run with the pass. They have to pass protect better. They have to, receivers wise, they have to get, they don't have a get out of jail free card. They don't have a Travis Hunter or Jamar Chase, where sometimes on that call sheet, I know on my call sheet, it basically said touches. And you throw it up to a guy once in a while because he can make a play. They don't have a guy like that. So in terms of, for me, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is if you don't address the offensive line first. The offensive line, without an offensive line, the quarterback who's ever back there, it's going to be tough to get any type of evaluation. Now, in terms of what Shedeur needs to do the next 3 weeks, in my opinion, is kind of do what he's doing. He's going to have some ups and downs because of his surrounding people. Is he still being a leader? Does he make the throws? Is he now, Earl, not if he always makes a great throw, is he going to the right spot? Did he make the right read? Is his footwork getting better and better? If all those things happen, then yeah, you have so many holes right now on that offense. You got to put some pieces around whoever that quarterback is. And if you believe that he's the guy, you better get him some weapons around him, because if not, whoever you get, if you feel great about whoever, they're going to struggle without pieces.
That's a fact. And before we talk about who might be making those decisions next year, whether it be to get another quarterback or to build around Shedeur Sanders, we got to hear from our people at Rocket Money. But listen, we want to hear from y'all in the chat. What y'all think about it? How should the Cleveland Browns approach 2026 with Shedeur Sanders? Don't forget, like, subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Make sure you ring that bell. If you need a way, use that QR code right there, man. You can use that. Subscribe. We all are almost at 80,000 subscribers as we close out the 2025 season. But again, this next upcoming segment is brought to you by Rocket Money. Do you ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here and then pause by there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Seeing all your spending on a one dashboard makes it easier to understand where your money is going. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. I want to see if I can pull up the results of this poll real quick. So we didn't get that many votes. We got about 80 votes in the last 30 minutes. And I asked a simple question. What matters most to you? Full body of work, or what have you done for me lately? And Lance, the reason why I think I posed this question this way is because when you're talking about making a pretty significant choice when it comes to anything that has to do with relationships, a career change, a business decision, and especially when you're talking about like moving on and firing people or changing out parts and components, I think it's important to really, really always weigh, okay, do I assess this person's full body of work, or do I assess what this person has done for me lately? And I think that when we have this conversation about Andrew Berea and Kevin Stefanski, I say myself included, I think a lot of us in the media, a lot of the fans, we talk in circles. We want it both ways, right? We want to ID the full body of work and then somehow bring it back to, well, recently it's been this, that, and the third. And in my opinion, I don't think we can have it both ways. I think that especially when you're talking about sports and the NFL, when this league is about, well, what have you done for me lately? And I think it's a matter of opinion. And you can look at the full body of work for Kevin Stefanski, for example, and it looks a whole lot better. That resume looks a whole lot better than what he's done lately. You can look at Andrew Berea and say that long-term resume don't look as great as Kevin's, but what you did in this previous offseason, you damn near checked every box there was to check. When it comes to both of them, how do you see it? How do you assess it?
Well, I think I'm a full believer in the full body of work, and I'll give you a couple of examples. When they went in on Deshaun Watson a couple of years ago, everybody kind of looks at it like, oh, look at what that's done. That's ruined it. I'm a Baker fan. I like what they did. They said, you know what, we're going to get this guy who in 2020, some of the best film I've ever watched in my career in football. I have no doubts he was going to be great. Sometimes it doesn't work out, injury, whatever happens, but that's kind of set them back a little bit, and they've struggled. Now, I will say this, Kevin Stefanski has not gotten dumb, but right now his message isn't getting through. And as a coach, sometimes that happens, and I think he's done a lot of good things. He really has, but he's really, really struggled getting his message across. Now, his personality, people don't like it, Earl, and I'll tell you, I actually like his interviews. Why? Because he takes it upon himself, and it's not always pleasant. And I get that, but he doesn't throw anybody under the bus. And a lot of it's him and a lot of, but when you start blaming and doing other things, it's not, I kind of like that about him. Now, Berea, again, he's been outstanding last year. I mean, this draft could be historical. It could be the best draft ever in the history of the NFL if they keep doing what they're doing. So it's one of those things. Do you believe in what can happen moving forward? I'm a big Andrew Berry fan, and I'm also a big Kevin Stefanski fan. Now, that being said, Kevin Stefanski didn't get done, but right, like I said, his message is not getting through to his guys. And right now, they're not fundamentally doing the right things. They're not getting lined up. They're not doing the things that have helped. Now, things tie into that. No one cares, and I understand that, but they do have they have 5 new offensive linemen last week. They have a rookie quarterback. They have their best players are rookies. They're the rookies thrown to rookies, and it's like there's things that tie into that. But sometimes the message doesn't get through. And as a head coach, when things go bad, you're the one on the chopping block. Head coaches and quarterbacks get too much blame, too much credit. I'm a full believer in sticking it out, but I understand if people want to move on. But you got to be careful when that happens too, because sometimes there's only so many Ben Johnsons out there. There's only so many guys who can really come in and impact. There's only so many quarterbacks that can do that. If you're saying, well, we want a great quarterback, I'm not sure as I'm watching, is there a quarterback who's going to be better than what the Browns have after a full year of experience? And I even include Dylan. That Dylan could be, if Shedeur's a guy, Dylan's a great back. Those kind of things. You have to be careful what you wish for. It just isn't working out. And once again, unfortunately, this is not a process-based business. This is a product-based business, and they're not winning games. If you don't win games, sometimes you got to make a change.
And I think that's where my biggest thing is now with Kevin Stefanski, because I think up until middle of last season, I was really on board with let's stick this thing out. Let's see it through. Let's just see how things work itself out. But you've coached football, and when your mantra is what your mantra is, when your motto is and your message is what it is, and you're preaching that and you're trying to drive that home, in the beginning, I think it's easy to have faith and belief in with that message that your head coach is bringing home to you. But it becomes harder and harder when you don't start seeing the results, right? When you're constantly losing and the message is staying the same and nothing is changing, like that can become a problem. And then to me, to hear some of the reports of, when the player survey came out and feeling like that, some of their opinions or some of their messages kind of fall on deaf ears, or feeling like he possibly might have compromised his own integrity with how he handles certain players over others. I think that when you're losing, it's kind of hard to overcome those type of things. It's kind of hard to get back in there and say, hey, right, like this is what it is. This is how it should be. I just don't see it from a player standpoint of, if you continue to bring Kevin back with the same philosophy, the same message, etc., that anything is going to change. As far as his personality being even keel and having balance, I think that when you are in a professional world, it's necessary to have that emotional maturity and to be even keel. But Lance, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. Like, attitude is a reflection of leadership. And sometimes, just as lax as Kevin is, I feel like there's moments to where this team take on a personality of their head coach. And that's not always a good thing when you're in the trenches. What you think about that?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I tell you one thing that you said earlier that really sticks with me, and I agree. I think people have to understand in the NFL, high school, college, there has to be alignment. And right now, they're not aligned from the front office to general managers to the coach to the players. And if you don't have alignment, you have a sinking ship. You're taking on water. And whatever that alignment is, and so if you think it's Andrew Berry and you think he had a great draft, then you stick with Andrew Berry. It'd be hard to say you're going to get rid of a guy who maybe had the best draft ever. But something's got to change. And as a head coach, you understand that. And right now, you said it best. The message is not getting through to his players, because some of the things that Kevin's really good at, and I watch every practice, it's not carrying over right now. They're not getting in and out of the huddle properly. They're not sharp in their formations. They're the little things that you can control. As my dad would say, control the controllables. They're not doing that right now. They lack talent. They on offense, but they're not doing what they need to do. I've had bad offenses at the high school level, but you can line up right, and they're not doing that right now. So yeah, his message isn't getting through. And earlier you said it best. You can't come back from that. It doesn't mean he's a bad coach, and maybe his message works somewhere else. But right now here, it's going to be really tough for his players if that's truthfully how they feel. it's tough to change that tune. Sometimes it just in general, it's, tenured coaches are very long in the NFL. And that's the reason why, because their message, you only know what you know. And right now, what he knows is not working with these guys. So, I think the writing's on the wall for Kevin. I think he knows that. And I think he's just got to keep fighting for himself and see what can happen. But I'm with you. It's just really, really tough now to say, let's believe in everything he's saying, because the results aren't there.
When I look at Andrew Berry, and I look at this previous offseason, for example, you talked about it. This draft class can go down as historically one of the best draft classes that the NFL has ever seen. And we both know the history of this league. And that's saying a whole lot for a man who really didn't really have a lot of credit in that area coming into this year of being able to draft players, that turned out to be solid. I thought that one of the biggest free agent signing he had this offseason was Malik Collins. Malik Collins was out here beasting before he got hurt. You re-signed Myles Garrett to that new contract, which, Lance, is kind of funny. This far into the season, it looked like a bargain.
I know it does. Well, and the funny thing is they're struggling right now, but with everything you're saying, there's pieces here. It's not that far. There's not as far away as people think. And I'm with you. And it goes back to people were like, well, he made the Deshaun Watson decision. And I will stand on my mountain alone with that. When that decision was made, I watched film and I try to do the best I can. That 2020 film, when they went out and got him, I was like, Baker's really good. I really like Baker. He's doing some good things, but this is the next level guy. This is like top 3-4 guy. It didn't work out. They, when they say they swung and missed, that happens. Now it set them back a little bit. Maybe set Kevin back a little bit. That's what happened in the NFL. They rolled the dice. They lost a little bit on that one, a lot to injury. But I liked it when they made that move. So when people criticize him for making that move, I actually like that move. I thought Deshaun Watson was a great get on the field when they got him. It just didn't work out.
No, it didn't work out. And it's funny because I really don't bring that up with Andrew or Kevin. I kind of watched that one off on Jimmy. Like that's a wash. That's on Jimmy Haslam. But when you just have that conversation, you talk about the full body of work versus what have you done for me lately. If you were the decision makers for the Cleveland Browns, we're at the end of this season and you got to make some tough choices, Lance, on your general manager and your head coach. What are you doing?
Well, I'm gonna. If I have to make a decision, so you're saying I have to make a decision, I got to stick with Andrew Berry, and I'm going to have to let Kevin go. Reason why is because the message isn't getting through, and there's pieces on the field. Now, I will say this. When people say Kevin Stefanski won't get hired again, he'll get hired right away. He'll be one of the hottest coaches, and maybe rightfully so, maybe not. But his message isn't getting through here anymore. And there's been some really good coaches in the NFL, over the last 40 years who have been really successful and have gotten fired. And that's the reality of the business. And right now, if you're not winning, the bottom line is, and I think you agree with me, Earl, they're not winning. And if this is not, we're developing Shedeur, we got a great rookie class, they're not winning. And that's on the coach. The coach has got to win football games. And that's what you sign up for. And when people used to boo me when I lost, I understood that because you signed up. This is a product-based business, and they're just not winning right now.
There it is, man. Listen, it's almost time for us to get out of here. We do got one super chat. It comes from Steven 7701, says, whatever the cost they need to go get Howie Roseman from the Eagles, he will rebuild the roster and set up the Browns for success. You ever see Howie walking out of Philly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, here's what I'll say to that super fan. I agree with you, and here's what Howie Roseman does that I love. He's a football guy. And what I mean by that is that so many guys that deal with analytics and numbers and sizes, and that's all important in the NFL. You and I stand next to those dudes. They're big humans. But you got to find guys who like the ball. Right? You got to find guys that like to play. And that's what Howie Roseman does. He finds guys that like to play ball. And I think that's what he does the best. If you look at that Philly team.
Lance, man, it's been great spending this last half hour with you, brother. It's been great having you on this platform. You are welcome to stop by anytime. That is my man, Lance Reisland, a.k.a. Coach Rez. You can hear him every single Browns game day on 92.3 The Fan on the Bud Fan Tailgate Show. And you can always read his work on cleveland.com. Lance, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I appreciate you having me on, Earl. It's it's been great getting to know you. I look forward to working with you some more. And let's see if let's see these last 3 weeks. Let's see these guys improve a little bit here in the last 3 weeks. See if they can be competitive. They were competitive last week. Let's get them going this week. I think that's got to be Shedeur's thing, is be impactful on his teammates.
Yeah, it's been great getting to know you as well. Like I said, man, you're a great human being, great person. You do a lot for the community. You'll do a lot to touch the youth. And that right there and alone means more than anything that we can do when we talking sports, man. Again, my condolences to you. I already know the holidays can be tough for people that's in your situation and my situation. So thoughts and prayers out to you, man. Stay strong and we'll talk soon. To our audience, thanks for joining us today. Remember, like, subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Ring the bell so you can stay in the know of this spinoff show and the rest of the spinoff shows that's on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube channel. Until next week, y'all know my vibe, man. Be great. Spread love. Remember, being great come with a price. Spreading love is priceless. Till next time, peace. Love y'all.